my name is AJ Pruitt and I'm the author of the Anathalian series, and I'm also an editor, and this video is going to be an editing tip about dialogue tags and dialogue action. I have done an editing tip video about how to punctuate dialogue, so if you want to watch that too, go down and look in the description and find the link to that. But this is going to be about what are they and which one should I use? Dialogue tag or dialogue action? So first, what are they both? Both go with a line or lines of dialogue when characters talk. You're going to use dialogue tags and dialogue actions when your characters talk. So a dialogue tag includes a speaker's name or a pronoun like he, she, or it. And it includes a speaker's name plus a verb that describes how the dialogue is said. So an example of dialogue tag would be, I like ice cream, he said. He said is the dialogue tag. We'll talk later about the verb said and other verbs you can use, but for now that's the most simple example, he said. Okay, so what is dialogue action? Dialogue action tells what the speaker does at or around the time he or she says the dialogue. And a dialogue action usually includes at least a verb and the character's name or a pronoun. Example would be, I like ice cream. Then you'd have a period, he licked his dessert. And so instead of saying he said, you tell something he did for the dialogue action. Dialogue tag kind of tags it and says this is who said it. The dialogue action puts an action with what is said. Okay, so if you have any questions at any point, if you have any examples you want me to explain, again, the punctuation is going to be in a different video, so go to that video and watch it if you have questions about the punctuation. But if you have any questions about what I talk about in this video, please do ask your questions in the comments. Okay, so the bigger question about dialogue tags and dialogue action is which one should I use while writing and when editing my work? What purpose do they serve? So they each have a purpose. Some authors, some writers say that you should never use dialogue tags because they're amateurish and they're weak, but they do both have a purpose in writing. If somebody tells you you should never do something in writing, unless it's just flat out a wrong grammatical thing, you should probably look into that yourself and see if that's right or not, because there's a lot of writing things that some people think you should never do, and you can sometimes. And this is one of those things, you can use dialogue tags and you can use dialogue action. They both have a purpose. So dialogue tag first. Dialogue tag. You want to use dialogue tags when you want to be clear how someone says something. Yeah, you could do that with a dialogue action. You could say, well, we'll get to examples, but you could definitely show how someone says something with a dialogue action. But dialogue tags can cut down on unnecessary wordiness. They're effective, they're efficient, and they get to the point very quickly. And they do often help, like, just get to the point really quick and say how someone says something. So an example would be, are you going to answer? She snapped. Versus if you use a dialogue tag for that, are you going to answer? She crossed her arms and frowned. See, she snapped is quicker, more efficient. You get to the point. You see in that word snapped, you see she says it, are you going to answer? And she says it in a snappy way, and someone will understand that. The crossing the arms definitely gets to the point. It shows that she's not happy. It shows that she's upset, but it takes a little bit longer. And so dialogue tags, they are, either will work in most situations when you're writing, but dialogue tags, they have a quicker pace. They're more efficient. If you don't want to slow down your pace of your writing, a dialogue tag might be the right choice. You can have a quick dialogue action, and I know some people are going to say dialogue tags are just, unprofessional and all this, but dialogue tags have a place. They can be quick, they can be efficient, they can get to the point very well without having to describe a big long action or a short action. Because if you describe an action, you still have to describe. It's not going to be just one word, like a verb. The verb of a dialogue tag will be. Okay, so dialogue action. You want to use a dialogue action when you want to be clear about what the character does, when what the character does matters, when their action matters the most. So same line of dialogue, different tag and different action. Are you going to answer? She questioned. So you see question there, you can just say, are you going to answer? Question can be a little bit vague sometimes. Dialogue tags can be a little bit vague sometimes. But are you going to answer? Her fingers curled around her sword's hilt. You see a whole lot more in that action. And so I imagine when I wrote that, I imagine, her saying, are you going to answer? But then you see her hand moving down to her sword, and it shows this threatening movement. And so even though her voice may be casual and she may just question, the action really shows her intentions. And so that's a case when you definitely want to use the action. When the action is going to get more across to your reader than just the simple dialogue tag, then use that. Okay, if the action communicates a more full picture to the reader, go with it. All right, so that kind of helps you know which one should I use, and they both do serve a purpose. So some more tips about which one should I use. I got a list, so I'm just going to go through them. And again, if you have any questions, if you want to comment anything, please do put it in the comments. I'm going to try to make the video not too long, so I'm going to try not to say too much about each of these. So, which one should I use? One tip is use which one fits the scene or the moment best. Are they just talking? And so dialogue tags might work because they might just say something. Or are they in the midst of action and a lot of action is going on, and so you don't want to, say you don't want to say a line of dialogue and then kind of bog it down with a long action. You don't want to bog it down with a dialogue tag that's kind of vague. And so just be very aware of what's going on in the scene or the moment. Which one should I use? You can use both. Variation creates interest whenever you write. So don't think you just have to use one, I just have to use the other. Whichever fits the scene and go. So another tip is to don't be repetitive with either. If you use action tag, dialogue tag over and over and over, it's going to get repetitive, especially if you use the same one. If your character, he said, she said, they said, it said, it's going to get repetitive. It's going to bore readers. Same way, if you use the same dialogue action over and over. I read a book lately that she angled her face, she angled her body, she angled to listen, she angled this. I'm like, I hate the word angled. Whichever one you use, dialogue tag or dialogue action, if you use them over and over and over and over, they're going to get annoying to your readers. So vary them up, don't be repetitive. The next tip, you may not need either dialogue tag or dialogue action. If you have two characters talking, just two characters, and they're having a conversation, and not a lot of action is going on, they're just having a conversation, and it's clear who says what, you don't necessarily need to say, hello, he said, hello, she said, what's going on, he said, I don't know, she said. You may just need to have the initial, what they say initially, and have the tag or the action, and then go from there back and forth, because your formatting is going to explain they're going back and forth, because you start a new paragraph with each person that speaks. Each time a person speaks, you start a new paragraph. That's a different topic. So, yeah, and even if you have more than two characters, sometimes you can get away with, because I have 4 main characters, and each of them have a very distinct voice. And so sometimes I can get away with not having a dialogue tag or dialogue action because what one person says is very clearly that person speaking. So you may not need either. That's that tip. All right, next tip. You do not need to include a tag or dialogue action for every sentence of dialogue. Don't feel like if you've got a paragraph of them talking, every sentence they say, you have to have something with it. You may just need one initial dialogue action. He picked up the book and then he talked about the book, and that whole paragraph is just him talking. It's going to be in the same paragraph, so people are going to know it's him talking. You don't need to switch around the dialogue tags and dialogue action just so people know, because they'll know. So you may just need one dialogue tag per paragraph, even if it's a long paragraph or several paragraphs. I have a character who talks in several paragraphs, and if it's her, then I don't have to say, and she said this, and then the next paragraph, and she said this. You don't need to do that. If your character speaks for a long time, I said that, you may only need to set the tone once. And if your character does something important while talking, or changes in tone significantly, and punctuation or the dialogue itself doesn't make that clear, you can go ahead and use multiple tags or accents, just not too many. Like if your character's starting to talk and you say, please don't do that. And you say, please don't do that, she said calmly. And then it escalates as she keeps talking. And then by the end, she's like yelling. You can put at the end, she screamed or whatever. To show that the talking has escalated. But you don't like put a dialogue tag or dialogue action with every single sentence. Okay. And you can use a combination of these whenever you're writing. So I know we talked about variation and everything, but I mean for one line of dialogue. If someone says, are you going to answer? Again, back to our example earlier. Are you going to answer? She sweetly asked, but her fingers curl around her sword's hilt. So then you paint an even bigger picture, and I do this a lot. You can have the dialogue tag and then augment it with a dialogue action to show a bigger picture, a clearer picture. You could just use one. You could use both at the same time. Okay, so those are my tips about when should I use a dialogue tag or when should I use a dialogue action. And overall, all these tips, overall, think about when you're trying to decide which one should I use, ask yourself, what do I need to show my readers? And then how can you best convey your story in the mind of readers? The story in your mind to readers' minds. All the editing stuff that you're going to do, except like basic punctuation. Well, even basic punctuation is about conveying clearly your story to your reader. You want to clearly convey your story, and that's what editing is about, making it the most clear possible. And so go back to that when you're trying to decide, trying to figure it out. Don't think about all the people saying, well, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Think about, how can I clearly convey what I want to get across in my mind into my reader's mind, and go with that. Okay, so that is all my tips. Again, if you have any questions, or if you don't want to do this yourself and you need help and you want an editor, I am an editor. I will be glad to talk to you about having my editing services. I'll put my website below where you can send me an email, or you can just comment about Eldon. Please stop. Or you can just comment and ask me about my editing services. Eldon, stop, please. Okay, so share this video, like this video, comment, subscribe, tell your friends about the editing stuff. And again, my video about punctuating dialogue is in a link below in the comments. Thank you for watching. Bye. Bye-bye. If you want to know more about Anna Thalian or H.A. Pruitt, please follow me on Instagram at H.A. Pruitt. You can find me on Amazon as an Amazon author, H.A. Pruitt. Please watch my YouTube channel and all my cool videos on my channel, H.A. Pruitt Anna Thalian. You can find me on the Facebook page, H.A. Pruitt Anna Thalian. You can follow me on Goodreads by the name H.A. Pruitt and the book Anna Thalian, or you can go to my website where so much cool stuff about Anna Thalian is. The website is hapruitt.com.